Okay? You are going to be then given a piece of paper, or let's say an answer sheet, answer key. It will look like this, together with the question booklet that I have given on site. Right? So they're going to do that. They're going to give you those two things, okay, for paper-based tests. As for computer-delivered tests this time, okay, you're just going to be given, the computer, everything there. You're just going to write the answers there. You're going to type it there. Everything's there, right? But they're still going to give you an extra piece of paper for you to write your answers, or not really answers. It's more make your notes or something, to help you. Okay? Now, in your actual test, for example, if you're planning to do paper-based tests in here, like the one I've given before you, in here you can write anything here. Okay? You can write anything here. You can draw a line, put a tick, okay, for example, or draw a circle. You can write your name and so on. Because at the end of the day, they're just going to throw this away, you know, and they're going to scan this, the answer sheet, right? Okay. Now, in your this time, okay, aside from that, this test would actually, the main thing that they're testing you here would be your time skills. How you manage to finish this test within 60 minutes by transferring it as well in the answer sheet, and at the same time, answer all 40 questions. Okay. In this test, you will be dealing with 40 different questions, and it will be divided into 3 parts. Okay? I'll be explaining different parts as well as we move forward. Okay, but as for online, is anyone doing academic? Right? Okay. Academic answer. General academic. Okay. Now going back. This time, what's going to happen here is I'll start with general first. For people who are doing general, what's going to happen is you will be dealing with 3 different sections. Okay, starting with sections 1 and sections 2, or part 1 and part 2, still the same. You would be having 2 short passages, okay, 2 short reading passages, okay, with 1 to 2 sets of questions, okay, for each. So as you can see, for example, for online, I've sent the material in the group. For on-site, you have it here. As you can see in this, it says your evening courses, right? So evening courses, you would see that these short reading passages, until F only, okay? These reading passages are like, brochures that you see around outside. Brochures, flyers, what else? All those sorts of, reading materials that you see outside. Maybe restaurant menu, maybe, an advert when it comes to the newspapers, and so on. So these are some of the reading passages that they'll be taking it from. In this case, it's talking about evening courses. So you're expecting that this is like a institution similar here in BMC, wherein these are some of the courses that they're offering. Right? Just information about this. It's a brochure, basically, about courses. So this is the first reading passage in your section 1 or part 1. And then, as you can see, questions 1 to 7. Okay? Questions 1 to 7, this is the answer, or these are the questions to this particular reading passage. Okay? Afterwards, still in section 1, you would see a second reading passage. Okay? A different passage this time. It's talking about bike foundry. So it's like again, brochure for a specific shop, for instance, or an organization. Okay, this is the second reading passage, and then again, okay, another set of questions for 8 to 14 this time. So this is section 1. It will be similar in section 2. You still need to deal with 2 short reading passages. with 1 to 2 sets of questions for those passages, right? Okay, then we're going to take a look at section 3. Section 3 or part 3, this time, what you're going to expect here is you would be dealing with one long reading passage. It's talking about marine ecosystems. One long reading passage. These reading passages are usually taken from books, articles, and so on. You know, informative stuff. Okay. All right. Now, in here, section 3, you would be dealing with, you're going to expect that you will be dealing with 2 to 3 sets of questions here, right? Okay, so this is for general. So people who are doing general, how do you say it? During this 1 hour, during this 60 minutes, you have to make sure that you have to finish section 1 and section 2 within 25 to at least 35 or at most 35 minutes. 25 to 35 minutes. So that means it will give you more time to handle section 3. Right? Because as you can see, you already saw it. Section 3's reading passage is too long. Most of the time, these passages are really boring. Like, for example, if you're going to imagine, in no way wherein, you're going to read something about marine ecosystems. Even if you think you're interested in it, you won't be reading it. But the thing here is, they're just testing you here on how you understand, the questions. How will you understand the questions that they're asking from you? Okay, that's it. So no matter which type of information you would come across in your reading practice tests or in your actual exam even, you just need to remember the techniques, the 3 reading skills that I'm going to teach you and how to deal with different question types. Even if the topic is really boring, as long as you know what to do, okay, you'll be fine. Okay, so but before we continue, any questions? Good. All right. This time, for people who are wondering, let's say if you're wondering how much you need to get, how much you need to score when you need to get a 7, you need to get 34 out of 40 correct answers to get a 7. All right. Yes, reading. What's good about your reading test is all of the answers are there. All of the answers are there. They're not going to ask you questions wherein the answers, you have to think about it really. They're not going to do that. So all of the answers can be found in the reading passage, and it's just you just need to look for it. That's it. Okay. All right. Now this time for academic. People who are doing academic. Okay. If you're wondering for academic, what they're going to expect is that it will be similar to section 3 for general. Okay, but you're going to multiply that into 3 parts or 3 sections. So that means for people who are doing academic, just in case you're wondering, they have to deal with 3 long reading passages, 3 long reading passages, and then 2 to 3 sets of questions for that. But the good thing about this is they would need a lower score in order for them to get at a 7. Okay, so for people who are doing academic, you only need 30 correct answers to get a 7. And it's also advisable that you have to split 60 minutes, into 3 parts as well. So that means 20 minutes for each section. That's it. Okay, so that's the difference between the two. Okay, now this time, what we're going to do, we're going to focus first. I want you to shift shift your focus to reading skills, because these 3 reading skills are necessary if you really want to get a good score in your actual exam, right? Okay, so what's happening. Okay, so in order for you to manage, in order for you to find the answers more efficiently, what I need you to do is I need you to get used to these 3 reading skills. Okay, we're going to start first with skimming. All right. As for skimming, okay, for you, you already know it. We just talked about it earlier. But for the rest of you, what do you understand about skimming? Both of you, if you still remember, what do you understand about skimming?
Like, we know which idea there is, and we match words from the question with the words from the.
The
Like
text
the-
fast, the
Mhm.
context fast, but getting the keywords out.
Good, good. That's it. All right. So let me explain it further. When it comes to skimming, okay, hold on. When it comes to skimming, it's requiring you to read faster than your average reading speed. You know, if you're going to, you know your reading speed, all of you. We have different reading speeds. Some people could read, faster than others. Some people read slower than others as well. Okay, but the main thing when it comes to skimming is that, you have to read faster than your average reading speed. Okay, so faster than that, but there are a lot of questions here. Would it be hard to understand the main point here if you're going to do that? Some people would say it's confusing. I can't do it. But at the same time, the thing about skimming is you're not just reading faster than your reading speed. You're also grabbing the keywords, like what she mentioned earlier. You're going to grab the keywords, okay, and then piece them together. It's like you're grabbing this important word, this keyword, and then another keyword, and then another keyword, and then combine them to understand the whole point. So that means skimming requires you to read as fast as you can while understanding the overall meaning, the overall information from the text. Hold on, let me set this camera. I know what's wrong already. Okay. All right, that's it. One moment. Sure? Everyone got it? Are you sure? Okay, so just to be sure, just to be really sure, okay, I'll explain to you all how for example, I'll just read aloud how I skim, So, but skimming requires you to read silently in your mind. So if I'm going to skim, for example, A, it would say here, these are classes for today, okay? So I'll start with the heading, cooking for today. So classes, those already make basic meals, keeping strictly simple. When I read that, it's like I'm just reading random words, right? But at the same time, what I'm doing is I'm piecing them together. Okay, so what did I understand about that? It's talking about a course. Okay, it's talking about a course that people were in. They could already make some basic meals. Okay, just and then to do a simple recipe. That's it. Okay, and then the next one, who would now use imagination? So again, simple recipe and then add imagination. So you already know. Maybe part of it that what it's talking about, but this is the main thing when it comes to skimming. It would take time. It would require practice. I'm sure you would have a hard time at first. You know why? Because technically these are skills. These are reading skills and going back skills. As you already know, all skills needs to be practiced in order for it to to show results, to be efficient. Okay. Sometimes for other people, maybe they're really talented. Maybe they've gotten used to this already before. They've tried it before. But for most of us uh, you know, who don't even bother with these reading skills before. Okay, but as of now, what I need you to do, I need you to get used to it. I'm not saying that you have to master it right away. All I'm saying is that you have to get used to it. Okay, because it will not only be beneficial for your tests, but also your work. For example, I've seen some people who skim A wherein they're just going to cross this. When they drew a line, or when they're going to draw a line like this, they already skimmed through everything. Even if they skip some information, they partly get the gist or the overall information about it already. That's it. So like that really would take a lot of time. But for them, since they've been doing it maybe throughout their whole lives already, then it's efficient for them. It would require them less time to find the answer or understand what they need to understand. That's it. Okay. So that's skimming. Okay. This time for scanning. So what do you understand about scanning?
Similar.
It's quite similar, but okay. What's the difference? You remember? For both of you, if you still remember, for you, it's still fresh for you, so you don't need to answer that.
I think different keywords apply in English. Like
Keywords?
much more than just
Good.
meaning.
Good. Anything else? All right. So I'll tell you the difference. When it comes to going back to skimming requires you to read as fast as you can. But the thing here is it requires you to get the gist or the overall information to understand the whole passage, right? As for scanning this time, it's quite similar, like what you mentioned. It's correct. But at the same time, okay, you need to gather the key information and you're looking for something specific only. So you're not just reading as fast as you can, you're also looking out for a specific word or specific information. Okay. So if I'm going to make a comparison or an example when it comes to scanning, okay, earlier I did the supermarket, right? Okay, so this time I'll change it just for everyone. If I'm going to try and make a comparison, okay, to everyday lives, because it's really common. We tend to do scanning without even noticing it. So when it comes to scanning, I'll give you an example wherein the situation is that I'm in the airport, for instance. I'm the airport. I have my boarding details, my passport, my flight number, flight details, and so on, right? And the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to take a look at the huge board, right? The huge board wherein you would see the ongoing flights and everything, all of the information. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a look at my flight details, for example, the flight number or the flight number, right? Okay, after the flight number, I'm going to scan, okay? And I'm just going to look for that specific information from the board, So for example, flight going to London, so and then you're just going to scan, it's like you're filtering some information because you only need a particular information from from the whole board, for instance. And it's the same here in scanning. So imagine that your flight details are the questions. The board itself would be the reading passage. So you're finding out the only things that you need to find. That's it. Right? I'll explain as well when to use skimming, when to use scanning as we go on. All right, but this is for scanning. So, do you have any questions? No questions? All right, hold on. So let me just send a message for the other session. All right, so skimming, scanning, these are two of the important information or reading skills that you need to use. Okay, so this time let's talk about intensive reading. Okay, so what do you remember about intensive reading?
Reading.
Okay, good. That's it. So intensive reading is like what we have been doing throughout our whole lives. If you're going to go back to when you first started, learn how to read. Okay, it's like you're taking your time, your own pace, reading it carefully. Okay, in order for you to understand, okay, what you need to understand. So at your own pace. So it's also a reading skill, but if you're going to use intensive reading throughout the whole test, then it would take too much time, basically. So this is why we need to be efficient. We need to apply different skills, okay, to manage our times more, to manage our time more effectively, right? Okay, so these are the three reading skills. So if you don't have any questions, then let's proceed to the question types. All right.
Can you tell me about the intensive reading one more time? I just wanna write it right now.
Intensive reading is like what we have been doing, reading at your own pace, reading word per word, reading carefully. I'd say. So, any more questions? Okay, so this time, okay, what we're going to do is we'll be discussing the first question type. So, one of the most difficult question types to deal in your actual exam, right, would be number one. So, what do you mean number one? So, number one is talking about matching headings. Okay, hold on, let me check. I think we have matching headings here. Evening courses. I think it's in section three. We're going to take a look at questions 28 to 34. Okay. Just in case you're wondering, this is what matching headings would be looking like, would look like. Okay. So as you can see, okay, it's going to ask you to choose the correct heading for each section. So, starting from first list of heading until 8, right? 1 to 8. And then as for the questions, it's going to ask you to read different section of the reading passage. So 28, section A, 29, B until 34, section G. Right? And then you're just going to match a proper heading or choose a title for that particular paragraph. Right? Now I'll start first with genital. When it comes to genital, okay, or basically for everything. Hold on. Let me change this. Share this. Okay. You would also notice that there would be more headings than the paragraphs. So you would have only 2, 4, 6. You only have 7 questions here. And then as for the list of headings, you would have 2, 4, 6, 8. So additional one, one list of heading. Some tests would give you 2 additional headings just to confuse you, but the only thing that you can also remember is that each heading can only be used once, right? Each heading can only be used once. So that means if you've finished one already, then you can disregard that for a potential answer for other sections, right? So for example, one, plans for more marine protected areas. So if you determine this heading already, then remove it. I suggest physically removing it, crossing it out, in order for you to, for everything to be clearer when you manage to reach the latter part of the question type. So for example, you're already in 33, right? So you're already in 33. So what's confusing about this is most of the time, as for the list of headings, I think this one also applies here. I think it could also be here. So what happens here is people change their answers until they get confused. They don't want to basically answer the question anymore because they got confused. They're mixing everything up because they think that this one could also be a possible list of heading. Unlike if, for example, you're going to physically remove it, cross it out, So let's just say you're already in section F. So that means you've answered 5 questions already. So if, for example, those questions would be, the answers would be until 5 here, disregard until 5, then that means you only have 3 more choices left, right? Unlike if you're just going to put a tick or put a mark on beside it, it would play tricks on you. It would play games on you as well. Okay. And at the same time, you'll be confused basically. All right.
Easiest way to know the answer because if ever none of the headings
Should I start with the headings or should I start with the question?
Good question. The skill here, especially when it comes to general, sections 1 and 2, right? I'll start with sections 1 and 2. Why? Because if you're going to compare the reading passage, as you can see, it has a lot of information, right? But if yeah, it's really long. But if you're going to compare only, let's just say section 1, just you'll find 2 to 3 sentences only, short sentences, right? So that means if you are going to deal with this question type in part 1 or section 1 and 2, then that means what you need to do is the required skill to use here will be to skim. That means you need to skim A in full. After skimming A, go to the list of headings and then just choose. That's it. So that means, as the answer to your question is to go to the passage first.
It's possible to answer one, like, because when I won't check if it's possible. If you don't have time, after we have that.
Yeah, that's okay. All right, no problem. Because for example,
I won't see the way you talk about.
Okay. So we're going to do that. Hold on. For A, but I'll finish section 1 and 2 first. So section 1 and 2, don't forget, skim. Okay. As for section 3 this time, okay, since this is the best example, section 3 for general, and then as for academic, it's similar. What you're going to do is you're going to skim A in full, and then choose the heading, right? So, or sorry, not that. That's not it. You're going to do a time trick, I should say, when it comes to section 3 or academic, all right? So what do you mean time trick? You're going to use a time trick in order for you to understand faster, instead of reading everything, because it has long passages. So the time trick here is first, you're going to read the first sentence, okay? Starting from, for some time now, the world's ocean and people who fish them have been a constant source of bad environmental use. Cod is effectively an endangered species of fish. In some places now, every year, thousands of dolphins are injured by fishing vessels. Huge tuna farms are ruining the Mediterranean Sea. It's the first sentence, right? So this was a short sentence. Okay, the next one is a second sentence this time. What is more, marine biologists recently warned that our seafood is in terminal decline. That's it. So when I read first sentence and then second sentence, basically it's talking about marine life, marine animals, fishes, and then damages by, for example, fishing vessels, right? So constant source of bad environmental use caused by people, right? So connection with fishing or fishes, marine animals, people, effects, all of those information, just combining them together. Yes, exactly. And then the last sentence this time, or at least that's how the media reported it. So it's a game changer. So media reported it. So the time trick when it comes to dealing with this is you're going to read the first, second, and last sentence of the paragraph while understanding the gist. Okay, so what about the rest? Don't mind the rest, okay, because the most important thing here is you always have to remember for each paragraph. This is a rule when it comes to even writing. Writing rule, wherein the first paragraph or the first sentence of each paragraph must contain the main idea of the whole paragraph itself. Okay, so that means first sentence, like what we read earlier, it's all about marine animals, people. Second sentence or the following sentences is also going to be a supporting opinion, supporting idea related to the first paragraph. Or sorry, the first sentence, I should say. Last sentence is mostly just a short conclusion about the whole paragraph. Or so like what happened here, or at least that's how the media reported it, right? So I've read A, I've done the time trick. This time let's choose a proper heading. So go to the list of heading, okay? And what do you think is the answer here? So for A, bad environmental news, media reported it, So what do you think? It's not talking about one because it's not talking about the plants, so I'll cross that out. It's not talking about historical overview. It's not talking about number three as well, okay, because it's not talking about saving marine animals.
Reading.
I already sent it to you. Okay, number four, what the press has missed. So positive, right? Because it's talking about media. So that's how the media reported it. And then bad environmental news. So what do you
There
think?
is no idea of media.
Mhm.
What the person is.
So the answer is four, right? Okay, why? Because in the first sentence it says your bad environmental news.
First, it is
Constant source of bad environmental news. Okay, so first sentence, start going back. For some time now, the world's oceans and the people who fish them have been a constant source of bad environmental news. And then, I read different marine animals as well. Okay, that's it. So these are the bad news, right? Then second sentence, what's more, marine biologists recently warned that our seafood is in terminal decline. And then, at least that's how the media reported it. So that's it, right? So the answer would be four. It's how the media reported it. Okay, or what the press has missed. They miss on these information because this is what they only reported. Because if you're going to take a look at the other sentence, this is the thing. Sometimes it's really confusing wherein time trick won't work. Okay, so your plan A is a time trick. Plan B is to skim. So that means since you've done the time trick already, you didn't get it, this is the time for you to skim everything again. So skim until you understand, then answer. Right? So it's like this. For example, since you missed or you did not read, according to research published, stocks of all the fish and shellfish that we currently eat will collapse before 2050, or at least that's how the media reported it. So
matching with four is
what the press has missed. So basically, they missed. Hmm. Yeah, that's the best answer. Yes.
Who is currently reading.
Oh yeah, you're right. You're right. Chill out. I got confused. Yeah, you're right. It's six. Who is currently being blamed? You're blaming people. All right, I got confused with the other test. Okay, but anyway,
for the environment, they are blaming them.
yes, exactly. Right, but that's it. Okay, so this is how you're going to handle matching headings. All right. Okay. So if everything is not working, do skimming to understand more. And then since you've managed to answer that question already, cross it out from the list.